It's my feeling that whether riding for pleasure or showing, your horse can be enjoyed on any level if the rider has insight into what enhances a performance. Insight brings out the beauty and intelligence of each horse, no matter what its ability. Each movement of the rider, right or wrong, directly and immediately affects the carriage and therefore the performance of the horse. In my experience, the horse is willing to do what the riders want if the aids are clear and uncomplicated, if the rider has the correct position that allows simplicity in the deliverance of those aids, and if there are no cobwebs cluttering the understanding mentally by the rider of what he or she wants the horse to do. In an era where earning the dollar has pushed too much too soon, the bad horse is quickly sold off. We need to remember that it takes an equal amount of money to ride well as it does to rush doing it poorly. This is the first of a series of videos with several layers of learning, from tools for teaching to insight for the student. I'd like to talk about developing the seat, the riding foundation. In order to do that, we need to learn to control the body parts, one at a time, mentally from the head. The hardest thing to develop is the control of the leg and then the foot. Being the farthest away from the brain, it's the most difficult to control. In order to ride safely, in order to sit deeply, we need first to learn how to use the thigh by keeping the thigh rolled on in order to control the upper body balance and weight. The majority of our weight is from our thigh up. So it's necessary to learn to keep this thigh rolled in flat. For women, to get the thigh flat is more difficult because we all have a layer of fat which surrounds us. No matter how thin you are, there is a layer of fat. So we need to work on the thigh so that the fat shifts and exposes the muscle next to the saddle. The thigh then lays in flat. If the thigh is in flat, the lower leg then lays flat against the horse's side. If the thigh is turned out, the lower leg is turned out, and we grab with the back of the leg here, which is a hard muscle. The thigh is rolled in. We then use the inside flat of the leg this way. The weight goes on the big toe, and the heel goes down. The lower leg then is free to move, to be used in any way desirable for communication with the horse. We then develop a very light touch, out, in, this way. First, we must learn how to control this thigh. And you will see in the tape many exercises that we do in order to develop that muscle. One of them is where the legs are out from the stirrups, the heel is away from the horse's side, and the toe is up, heel down, and we use this thigh muscle to then sit. We use this muscle while we walk, while we trot, and while we canter. keeping this lower leg free. Another exercise you'll see is where we reach down and touch the toes from the left to the right. When you come back up after touching the toe, you pull yourself back up with your thigh this way, that you learn to control your upper body weight from the thigh. Other exercises are standing in the stirrups in order to stretch down in the heel, getting the ankle joint loose so it can absorb the body weight sitting in the saddle. It's a shock absorber, down. That allows us also to give aids. For example, if we pick up the canter, you stretch down into a stirrup, like so. That drops the weight on the inside hip. The same if you bring this leg back and the weight is not down there, the weight is going to shift over to the left side where you stretch down into the left stirrup, picking up the canter. There you begin to learn now to use the weight from left to right and right to left to your advantage as a rider. But first you must learn to control the leg, because the leg is everything. The first set of exercises here will be to strengthen the rider's thighs. The reason needed for strengthening the thighs is that this is what keeps the rider on. When they're off to the side this way, this thigh keeps them on, keeps the upper body in balance, this way or this way. Without the thigh, then the knee open, they lose the balance and go off the horse's side. This is very important. We'll show it to you from the front. With the thigh on, she has control of her upper body. Most of the upper body weight is from the thigh up. This has to be controlled through the thigh. With her thigh on, she can hold. This keeps the balance, keeps the upper body balanced. With the thigh off, like this, she only has a choice of gripping down below, which means the heel will dig in the horse's side, and then you either upset the horse or the rider comes off, or both. So the first thing that we need to learn is how to keep the thigh on. One of the first exercises then that we will do is without stirrups, developing the muscle for this thigh to hold the rider on. This exercise is performed with the heels out away from the horse's side and up as high as the rider is able to carry them. Free again from the horse's side with the toe up. Now that's a very important thing. If the toe is down, you lose control of this inner muscle going through up to the hip. The toe must be up, everything exactly as though it would be when you're in this, your foot is in the stirrup. This is an example of the same exercise done, except it indicates that one leg is stronger than the other. You will notice that the left leg is higher than the right. Everyone is uneven, but it's very important to notice the difference and to make the corrections necessary to develop the strength in the weak leg. It's also necessary at this time to keep the sway out of the back by keeping the stomach against the spine and keeping the buttocks tight, which holds the back straight. This is necessary so that you don't sit on your pelvic bone. For women, it's particularly important as the pelvis is easily tilted for childbirth. Again, the thigh must remain tight so that the weight can be controlled, whether shifting from left to right or thrown out of balance for some reason by the horse. The legs should be well up behind the girth, heels as high as comfortable, which in the beginning is not very high because the exercise is very difficult. This exercise now can be done at the trot. Legs up behind the girth. Higher, as high as possible, and the heel away from the horse's side. This also enables the rider to learn how to feel what it's like to sit in the saddle solidly and how to follow the motion of the horse. Now the lower leg can be carried down straight. And as a rest exercise, the legs can be carried in a stick-straight motion. The knees being perfectly stiff, the toes being straight ahead, and this stretches out all those muscles that have been cramped through carrying them up behind the girth. In review, this is the thigh and the leg turned out. This is an insecure seat and misdirects the horse to your aids. Remember, the thigh should stay rolled in, the lower leg resting against the horse's side, so there's no confusion about what you want. These same exercises can be done without being lunged, which often isn't possible. So use the side reins that you don't have to worry about losing control while practicing. Another exercise is standing in the stirrups. This exercise allows the ankle joints to become loose to absorb the shock. First, roll in with the thighs, supporting the upper body weight. Then you allow the weight to flow down through the heel where it can be absorbed in the ankle joint. This aids in the balancing of the upper body weight. Each time during the post, the thigh rolls in and the weight goes down into the heel. Standing in the stirrups gives you the opportunity to develop the thigh and the heel without the trouble of the post. This rider is short, so that her balance is not so easily disturbed. We will see later how the rider's conformation also influences the way in which they ride. The rein length is another important aspect of riding that must be learned from the very beginning. Most people ride with one rein shorter than the other by nature. We're all left-handed and right-handed. In this case, posting, please. Denise tends to let the outside rein go, the right rein, and the right elbow come in front of her hip. The left rein then is shorter, and most of the time along with that you'll find that the rider then leans in that direction. And also the horse then cuts the corner and does not turn as well because the weight is all to the left, and the right hand is not supporting, the right leg does not support. So it's very important from the very beginning to establish straightness, not only for the horse but for the rider. Both elbows back even at the hip bones, the thighs rolled in, the heels down. Next we'll see the crooked seat, or the collapsed shoulder or rib cage, and the longer right rein. The horse always goes well to the left because the rider always has the horse bent to the left because of their own crookednesses. And generally the left leg hangs on tighter too. But go to the right with the left rein too short and the right elbow extended, the right leg too long, and we always have trouble. Because now the horse is crooked due to the rider's crookedness and the inability to keep the horse straight. When this happens, the right leg is loose, the left leg gets tight, and generally draws in tighter in order to hold the rider in balance. We do this all subconsciously. In order to correct that again, we need to stretch down in the left leg. That is the first step. Then we put the rib cage straight between the shoulders. We draw the right thigh in tighter to make it hold. We draw the right elbow back. We draw the right elbow back to stay even. Not like this, but like this. Both elbows even to a horse's mouth. And then we have a straight horse who bends both directions. The other part of good posture is watching for the collapsed rib cage or shoulder. This is quite normal. Everyone is one-sided. The correction is lifting the rib cage against that elbow and coming up straight to level the shoulders. Again, it's lifting the rib cage, but in this case, to correct the collapsed side, you push the rib cage out against the elbow in order to straighten just the one side. If you think in terms of pushing the rib cage out, that corrects the posture. After repairing the collapsed rib cage, it is necessary to remember that the elbows must remain even to ensure reins of the same length. Now we have the posture. Posture includes slumping, chin out, rounding the back, and the arms then come forward, which puts a strain across the top of the shoulders, like so. We lift the rib cage, allowing the shoulders to stay straight, keep the elbow bent and back, which is natural, most natural and relaxed position, leaving the hands and the wrists free to communicate with the horse. Communication is difficult because of the necessity for developing sensitivity. The reins should be held from the shoulder and the bicep, which leaves the forearm, wrist, and fingers free to develop sensitivity to the horse's mouth. Having a tight fist pulls the upper body out of balance, forward, and leaves the hand hard and dead for communication. And look at the improvement with the correction from the shoulder and the bicep. This is the way one should be riding. A light hand begins at the elbow, but if the wrist is kinked out or in, it creates tension and heaviness. The inside of the arm, the muscle, becomes tight. When relaxed, the back of the hand is flat, following through on a flat forearm, enabling the fingers to be relaxed and flexible. The lower leg can be used in 4 different places. 1 at the top of the boot, there. 2 in the mid leg, there. 3 at the ankle, there. And 4 at the heel. If the toe is turned out and gripping with the back of the leg, you have one place to use the leg only, which is at the back, right there. Again, this is the correct leg, a sensitive leg. This is a gripping leg, an insensitive leg that makes an insensitive horse, one that does not follow the aids. Another rider problem we have is the short arm. By short, I mean from the point of the shoulder to the elbow, giving the tendency to straight arm your horse. With the straight arm, the upper body is constantly pulled out of balance forward, like this. And there the horse just pulled her out of balance. So it's important for the short arm to keep bent, even more important than it is for anyone else because of the upper body balance falling forward. So the shorter arm is going to have to be bent at the elbow and the hands held just a little bit higher. And then it's important, very important, that they ride with the longest leg possible so that the upper body stays in balance. Here she's riding nicely with the elbow bent and the weight well down. As opposed to the slow motion here of the straight arm, the body tipped forward, coming out of the saddle, and the heels up. What a difference. What a difference indeed. And here again is the correct seat, nicely bent at the elbow. Here is another rider with a longer arm and the same problem, being pulled out of balance. Okay, here we have another type of conformation problem. Her back is naturally swayed. This does not go away, but we can strengthen it through the exercise. Along with a swayed back, then, we get what we call a chair seat, where the thigh comes up, straight up, and the heel up, and the seat is this way instead of down into the heel here. That all starts here with the weak back position. So it's necessary, again, to put the stomach against the spine, and to tuck the behind, and straighten that, scoot up into the saddle. Tuck under here, really tuck it. Straightening this back out as much as possible. Keep your upper body straight. A little bit more, and no, only through this way. Only through this way, only through the middle. Keep the upper back straight. There. Now, tighten the seat. Yes. Now, the back, that swayed back straightens up quite a bit with developing the strength here in the lower back down through the thigh. Now we go from there and we work on stretching down, and the weight goes again on the big toe so that this curling action of the weight on the little toe here pushes the knee off the saddle and the lower leg away from the horse's side. So it's important to remember the toes slightly out, weight on the big toe, weight down into the heel, stomach against the spine, straightening here, and the elbow flat, and now we have a nice position out of conformation that has its own difficulties, but that doesn't mean that this rider can't enjoy and perform well on any horse if given the opportunity to develop the correct muscle and carriage. And that also then again comes through the thigh being flat, which allows the weight to go down, stomach against the spine, elbows flat. This is another example of a sway back. Her long torso produces an extra swimming motion, which is not only distracting to watch, it's ineffective because the weight is on top of the horse and not going down through the horse into the leg and heel. Too much movement is distracting. Too much movement is not necessary. And here she's put the stomach against the spine, tightened her buttocks, and the movement is minimal. Very nice. For the tall rider, we have a little bit different set of circumstances here. With the extra long leg, the tendency is to grip in this way, and again we have the same problem. The thigh rolling out, releases, the lower leg comes in, and you have a very insecure upper body here, which means that generally a tall person would slump, or they might tend to lean too far forward, like this, out of balance, left or right, and the knees off here. It's very important for the tall person, because of the extra height up above the horse, to keep this thigh rolled in and the weight down into the heel and on the big toe, the ankle joint absorbing the weight, and the elbow at the side here, maintaining the upper posture. It's very important because, again, of balance. This balance of the upper body is more precarious than for a shorter person. There's more up there to fall out of balance. There's more that can interfere with the horse's balance than with a shorter person, such as we saw on Denise earlier. Another point is, with the tall person, the tendency can be for the legs to be too far forward and then the upper body balance being too far back. This again, because of the added length here and the lack of control on the thigh, this can happen. Or if the leg again gets too far back here, then the upper body weight comes too far forward and the ability to sit becomes very difficult, whether you're riding dressage or jumping. And the sway in the back here will come from being out of balance and trying to keep the shoulders back while the waist is forward. Then you get this kind of a sway in the back. The whole body is out of balance here. When it comes here, the weight on the big toe, the thigh rolled in, the back straight, then you have control over this height. Steve is 6'2". The thigh here keeps that balance in line at all times. It's very important, I can't stress it, that this thigh stay rolled in and control the upper body balance. Without that, with this happening, you're out of balance at all times, even more so for the tall person. This is an excellent example of height handled well. Look at the secure leg. It never moves, enabling the upper body to stay beautifully in balance. The elbows remain bent to a quiet hand. It's so exciting to see something done well so that it looks easy, isn't it? Here we have some examples in action of the problems pointed out earlier. Notice the arms straight, pulling the shoulders into a rounded frame. The head and neck taking up the slack nod. The body, unable to sit, bounces and hits the horse in the back. The weight not going down through the leg and heel comes up off the horse's back. And the hand, each stride, hit the horse in the mouth. This becomes very apparent during slow motion. Another problem is excess motion through the chair seat and the pinning of the knee, so that the weight sits on the horse's back instead of flowing down into. I have been told by riders that this motion is necessary to create impulsion, and that the horse stops if they don't. No wonder, for the animal ceases to have any sensitivity in his sides from such a nagging leg. We as humans balk at being nagged. Why not the horse? Simplicity is everything. We need to look now at some details to understand why the heel is so important. The heel up hardens the inside of the calf muscle against the horse. it creates a horse with an insensitive side. With the weight down into the heel, it softens the inside of the leg against the horse, developing a sensitivity, as well as absorbing the shock of the body weight. We think strength is necessary where only touch is really needed. Here the heel is up, pushing the body weight up out of the saddle, pushing the body over balanced. As you can see in the canter here, the heel up is forcing the swimming of the waist. It does not allow her to sit down into the saddle. Here, with the heel in against the side, it grips only with the calf. It forces the thigh up and off the horse's side. Where the toe is out, the thigh follows. Without the thigh, the upper body can shift its weight, falling in and out of balance. Here it is, the toe out, the thigh off, and the hands hanging on the horse's mouth for balance. The midsection swims, the shoulders round. Here, with the heel down, you can see it absorbs the body weight at each post. This lightens the body weight into the saddle, making the impact soft. And here we have it at the sitting trot, and you'll notice the weight going down into the heel every stride. This makes sitting enjoyable for the horse and for the rider. At the canter, the weight is on the left hip, pushing down into the left heel, while the right leg is behind the girth. Notice the rhythm of the left heel each stride. Now let's take a look at hands. I'm going to show the hands kinked in first, and what happens with the elbow. The elbow floats like so, and makes the horse tight because of the lack of communication straight from the arm, the elbow, to the horse's mouth. The other position is kinked out, which creates tension. Tension across my shoulders and hands that move and are unsympathetic to the horse's way of moving. Rather, the hand should be flat. Straight line from the elbow to the horse's mouth. I'm using this horse because he has so much move, it's much easier for people to see what I'm doing, rather than taking one that's very smooth and shows no motion. It takes time to learn the control needed to deliver the aids by touch. Be patient with yourself. Although it looks easy, it is difficult because we must simplify an excess of motion. In other words, more doesn't make it better. you can see, the total use of the tools seen in this video put to work for another purpose.